Hello and welcome to another special broadcast, I guess. Convoy 2022 Part 4. I was going to do this Saturday, but I wasn't feeling well all weekend, so here we are. It is aptly named Never Go Full Palpatine. Mainly because I needed to make myself laugh, so there you go. First of all, I want to say it's been announced, so I'm gonna deviate here for a second. Best wishes out to Buckingham Palace. Hopefully, Her Majesty recovers. Many of you may not know Queen Elizabeth has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So, my best wishes to Her Majesty, and I hope that she recovers well. I'm pretty sure she has enough doctors around her that she should be back up on her feet in no time. With that said, on to the topic at hand. Now today, as I tried to do the last time, and I kind of veered off into, well, an argument, so there's that. Today, I want to talk about what's going on, but I want to kind of explain why I feel the way I do in regards to what is transpiring up here in the country that I love. And why I feel that right now the measures that are being taken by the Liberal government of Canada is the wrong approach. And why I feel that the precedents that are being set right now are scary and should be looked on with a lot more scrutiny than what they are being looked at. Because the precedents that it sets send shivers down my spine. And I'm not overstating that. And I think right now there's a vote in this nation's capital to prolong the Emergencies Act, or what will eventually, if the rhetoric is to be understood, it will either be ratified or we'll be going to the polls again. Neither of which I think are good situations. One, I don't think another election will solve the issue. Two, I don't foresee the Emergencies Act doing anything but damage. And it's a scary precedent to set. Now, have I looked at every single bit of footage that has come out? No. There's just not that many hours in a day. Do I know everybody's vantage point? Not really. So I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like I know everything, because I don't. What I do know, however, is we had for the most part, the most peaceful protests this nation has seen in a long time. Now, we can argue, which is what they want us to do, argue, over whether they did everything correctly, whether they took every step to ensure that they did things by the book, as it were. And I'm going to start this live stream with the same sentence that I ended last live stream with. And it was the point that I was trying to drive home, but unfortunately I got sidetracked in arguing other points that annoy me. And that is, and I really want to stress this, we're too busy arguing while they're doing. Because That is what this boils down to. We're too busy arguing our sides of it while they're doing things. Accounts have been frozen for the first time in a long time. You look at what's going on right now and you shake your head, because I don't just look at this in a capsule. I don't just look at this as, okay, this is going against the truckers or the movement that is the anti-vax. It's not that simple. And why I say that is, what happens today will happen again. The difference is it'll be a different cause. It'll be a different group of people. And since this has now been put into action once, what's to stop it from happening then? Every time that somebody stands up against something they don't believe in, will that dictate that we just throw liberties and freedoms aside? And it's more than that. It's the modern viewpoint. See, when I was growing up, and I tried to say this last time before I got derailed and I had to argue points that really didn't fit the conversation. The problem I have with this is it doesn't stop here. You know, it's one thing to look at it and go, well, they did it this time, but they won't do it again. There are scary words that come out of politicians' mouths. One of them is, this is only temporary. The other one is, yes, this legislation gives me a whole bunch of power, but I promise I will not use it. Those are scary words. Because as I said last live stream, if a politician has to come out and say, I will not use this for this, they've probably already done it or they're going to. History tells us this. History has shown us this. As many of you know, I am a history nut. I like looking at history. Why? Because I can then look at modern day and go, oh, that's happening again. Damn it. We didn't learn the first time. And this isn't the first time this has happened. It's just the first time that it's happened, that it went through. And that's the scary part. We're divided enough that they can pull this shite off without repercussion. And that scares me. It scares me because I have 4 children. And the world that they live in right now, I look at and I can't imagine myself being that age. I'd be screwed. Just simple little things. And it's happened over time, little by little. And now we're at a point where our Prime Minister can stand up, invoke the Emergencies Act, which mainly was meant for war or a major crisis in Canada, and use it to stop a protest. I don't think I can put into words how scary that is. I don't think I can put into words what that means. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter whether it's a conservative government, NDP, liberal. There are things that each party represents, and there are things that they support and they don't support. So eventually, we're going to have a conservative government once they get their act together. And I do say that once they get their act together, because they don't have it together right now. Which is part of the reason why Trudeau can do what Trudeau can do. I was looking at Parliament today. I was watching the question period going back and forth. And I was shaking my head. Because right now, Trudeau sits as Prime Minister. And many people sit there and wonder why the NDP are backing Trudeau. Well, it's quite simple. As long as Trudeau is in power, they have power. The NDP as a whole don't have a hope in Hades of getting the prime ministership. They just don't. They don't have enough support in Quebec. They don't have enough support in Ontario. And they don't have enough support in Alberta. Alberta is typically a blue province. For those American viewers, that means conservative. So the NDP's real only grasp at power is if they are supporting a minority government. And right now, that's what they're doing. They are supporting a minority government, which is the Liberal government. Now, the other thing that allows Trudeau to do what he's doing is the Conservatives are in turmoil right now. After the last election, O'Toole, the leader of the Conservative Party, was forced to stand down. And they have an interim leader. They do not have a permanent leader as of yet. So they don't have the strength to stand up to Trudeau right now. They just don't. They're in rebuild mode. And Trudeau knows it. The NDP are focused on holding power. And they know, because here's, Trudeau did say something true today. If the vote is turned down, if he gets voted out, if the Emergencies Act does not get voted for, it will launch another election. Because in order for this not to pass, the NDP would have to side with the Conservatives. Or at least enough of the members of the NDP would have to side with the Conservatives and vote it down. If they got that, it would automatically spark a vote of non-confidence in the House. If that happens, it automatically sparks another election in 6 months. So right now, he has put all his eggs in one basket, and he's hoping to push this through. Because if he doesn't, and he does not get the vote, it means we will have to vote again. Now, Canada just went through an election, federal. It cost us a whole bunch of money. And we really can't afford to do it again. But depending on how the vote goes, we will either do it again or Trudeau will have full power. Now, if I was in question period today, one of the questions that wasn't asked, or at least I didn't hear it asked, was, does he, because the Conservatives rightly pointed out, the protesters have been removed from Ottawa. Now, how they did that, I may or may not agree with, but they have been removed from Ottawa. The blockades, for the most part, are gone. And yet, Mr. Trudeau is pushing through the Emergencies Act. Well, I look at that and I ask the question that a lot of people asked. Why? Why would Trudeau still need the Emergencies Act if the protests are done? If the protesters aren't there, the blockades aren't there, why does Trudeau need the Emergencies Act? Well, you could go down one train of thought, which is that a lot of provinces during the 3-week protest came out and stated that their provinces would be relinquishing on the passports, on the mask mandates, and a lot of the mandates would be removed. A lot of provinces, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, many provinces came out and stated that they would be rolling back the mandates. Now, that goes against what Mr. Trudeau wants. So why would he need this emergency powers? Well, the emergency powers that he's asking for gives him the right to override the provinces. Therefore, I could very much see, and many may say this is conspiracy theory, but I could very much see Mr. Trudeau, once he gets the vote and he gets the official powers, he can then go and state to all the provinces, you know how you stated that those passports and those mask mandates are coming off? Yeah, no. No, you'll keep them in place. So says me. The Emergency Protection Act would give him that. The Emergency Act would give him the power to look at the provinces and go, no, you keep them in place. And there's not a damn thing the provinces could do about it. Because Trudeau would have the final say. That's how I look at this. Doesn't care about the protest. It was never about the protest. It was about the fact that people are starting to not want the mandates anymore. They're tired of it. They're tired of the goalposts being moved. They're tired of being told just a little longer, just a little longer, just a little longer. Well, people get tired of hearing that. Right or wrong, people get tired of it. People get tired of being told just a little longer. Just a little longer. Only to be told just a little longer. People get frustrated with that. People get frustrated when there's no plan in place, which there hasn't been in 2 years. People get tired of their livelihoods being put on the line because somebody with a pen decided, nah, we're not opening this week. How many businesses have been gone under? And I find it ironic that today and for the last little while, they've talked about how closing the border for 3 weeks was so damaging to the Canadian economy. They didn't close the entire border. They closed certain points of the border. So if 3 weeks, let me get this straight, 3 weeks of those border points being closed was so damaging to the Canadian economy, why then could the government themselves close the border for a year and a half? This didn't seem to bother them then. Didn't seem to be a big issue when they did it. Didn't seem to be all that big of an inconvenience when they themselves were the ones that closed the damn border for a year and a half. 3 weeks versus a year and a half. You know why they're pissed that you closed the borders down? Because they're still suffering from when they did it for a year and a half. They closed the border for a year and a half. Both politicians on either side of the border. They closed it for a year and a half. So now they're looking at me, telling me that those certain border points being closed for 3 fucking weeks is a strain on the Canadian economy. Yeah, I buy that about as much as I buy the fact that, maybe, just maybe, I'll wake up one morning and these tubes that are in my chest won't be there. Yeah, that ain't happening anytime soon. Trudeau sits there and tells me that these protesters are terrorists. I laugh at Mr. Trudeau when he says this. I laugh at him because, let's face it, folks, it's just a hot button word. It's thrown around like garbage. There's no meaning behind that word anymore. Just as there was no meaning behind communist anymore. Because that used to be the trigger word. Many of you will remember, if there was something that opposed the government, what did they label it? Communist. That's what they labeled it. It was communist. It was a communist ideal. And that turned the public opinion against that, and bingo bango, next thing you know, that decision goes out the window because it was communist. Seriously. Today's word, terrorist. Ooh, get you shaking in your booties. That's all it is. It's a hot button word they know will get the response that they require. Fear. That's the response they require. Fear. Because individually, we are intelligent. As a group, we are dumb as fuck. As an individual, we are intelligent. As a group, we are dumb as shit. Now, the other thing that scares me about this, and yes, John DeMarco points out the great Star Wars line, fear. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Yes, it's true. It's the truest words ever spoken. Also, divide and conquer. They divide us so they can conquer. Oh, and the third most scariest thing a government can tell you is they're doing it for your own good. That's the other one that scares the shite out of me. So, I look at things right now, and it is a scary time. Because of the precedent that this now sets. You think back not long ago, there were protests right across Canada. 215 became a hot talking point. 215. And that was when, and now I'm going to get in shit, that was when a mass grave was found from something called the residential schools. Now, my American viewers probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And it was a travesty that was put upon the Canadian Native Americans of this country. It was an absolute travesty. And to this day, we're still finding mass graves. Sins of our fathers. And it was when a government was given too much power. But did we learn anything? No, we didn't. And the reason we don't learn is because, as I said earlier, individually, we're intelligent. As a group, we are dumb as shit. All we need is a little bit of fear and the observation of being protected, and we'll sign away about just about anything. Our rights, our freedoms, don't matter as long as we're protected from the big bad of the day. There were other protests in this country over the last couple of years. I've seen statues be torn down. I've seen buildings damaged. During this 3 weeks of tyranny, according to Trudeau, were there roads blocked off? Absolutely. Did people have to live through honking? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yep, they did. But there wasn't buildings destroyed. There wasn't statues torn down. During that protest that spanned Canada that I brought up briefly, over 60 churches were burned to the ground nationwide. They didn't need the Emergencies Act then. They didn't need the Emergencies Act when Queen Victoria's statue in Manitoba was torn down and beheaded on live television. They didn't need it then. No, they didn't need those then. And JP is absolutely correct. And that's the rub. Not only did they not need the Emergencies Act when Queen Victoria's statue was torn down and beheaded, but they're rebuilding that statue at the cost of the Canadian taxpayer. And do you think there was one charge laid? They had every single one of them on camera doing it, but not a single charge was laid. Not a single one. Nobody was charged. There was no bank accounts frozen. But you march on Ottawa. You block off Ottawa streets. And oh my goodness, will the heads roll. You dare to talk against Emperor Trudeau. And I say that tongue in cheek. And heads will roll. The other thing that's been pointed out to me, oh, but this person and this person, look at their history. Okay. You found the bad eggs. Congratulations. Anything else you need? In every group of people, you will find the bad eggs. Every group. I don't care whether it's in your work. I don't care if it's in your school. I don't care if it's in society in general. You will find the bad eggs. They're there. Not much we can do about it. But you cannot sit there and tell me that because of these 3 or 4 or 5 people, the thousands that turned out and peacefully protested are to blame for their stupidity. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. And the reason I don't buy it is because if this was a cause you supported, you would say the infamous words that are said on every news station known to man when they find out that somebody in one of the righteous causes are an idiot. Well, that's just one person, but you can't discredit the rest of the people. It's funny how they use that. If it benefits them, well, then it's just a couple of bad eggs, but the majority of them were good. Like the wonderful speeches about mostly peaceful protests. That was fun. Mostly peaceful. Just throw that other stuff under the rug. Because this is something we support. It's ridiculous. And the more buzzwords they use, terrorist, white supremacist, the more buzzwords they use, the better. Because it justifies their position. I also don't buy it when they look at me and tell me that, well, this police chief is on side. Now, let me get this. Let me say this very clear. I support the Winnipeg Police Department, the Ontario Police Department, all the police departments in the world. I believe that their job is one of the toughest things in this world. The shit they see on a daily basis, it's insane. I was in security for 15 years, and the shit I saw doesn't hold a candle to the shit they see on a daily basis and the shit they have to deal with on a daily basis. But as I said earlier, there are bad eggs in every institution. And as I said earlier, if you think about it, what choice do they have? What choice do they have? Do you really think that if the head cop of the RCMP came out against Trudeau, he'd be the head cop of the RCMP for long? I don't think so. He'd be out of that office faster than he could pack a box. So then you have to ask yourself, is he siding with the Prime Minister because he thoroughly believes what the Prime Minister is shoveling? Or is it more job security? Doesn't have a choice. Didn't have a choice in the matter from the word go. He doesn't have a choice. If he turned around and said, "No, we didn't need this Emergencies Act to do our job," Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. We can handle it from here. You can go away now. No, he's not going to say that, because if he says that, there goes his job, his retirement, his reputation. He's done. He's finished. He sure as hell didn't get to the head of the RCMP by being an idiot. It's career suicide. Just as it would be career suicide for the leader of the FBI to go against the President of the United States. He wouldn't be the head of the FBI for very long. Because he would be removed. And somebody that will tout the line will be put in his place. That's the way the world works, folks. You don't get a say. When you're that high, you don't get a say. You tout the line or you're gone. And when you're gone, not only is your career over, but your life is. Because they'll ruin you. Just look at what they're doing in Ottawa now. You know, I was disappointed in the Conservatives today. I'll be fair. They brought up Jack Layton, who's been dead for 10 years. Please let the man rest. Now, whether or not Jack Layton would have sided with Mr. Trudeau is another story. But again, the man has been dead for 10 years. Let him rest. We don't need to drag up Mr. Layton. Mr. Layton tried his best to run the NDP the best he could, and he was the only one that came anywhere close to ever becoming Prime Minister. And he still fell short. Now, JP, I completely agree with you. Layton would probably have told Trudeau where to go and how to get there and how fast. But the NDP have learned. They're not getting the prime ministership. Hell, they can barely get voted in as premier now. They don't do well as the opposite of the official opposition. It's the only way the NDP can stay relevant is if they're propping up the Trudeau. It's the only way they stay relevant. Otherwise, it's between the Conservatives and the Liberals, and they know it. The other sign, if you look at the undercurrent of the Canadian politics, that makes me go, what the fuck? Hell has officially frozen over. Now, JP's, Zach's, you'll probably know this, but a lot of my American friends won't. You know that hell has frozen over when the Bloc Québécois side with the Conservatives. That's all you need to know. The Bloc Québécois sided with the Conservatives. That sentence doesn't get said very often. The Conservatives went on full out attack on the Liberals when they had the Bloc backing them up, saying that they were for a separatist, communist bullshit because they were siding with the Bloc. In 2022, the Bloc Québécois sided with the Conservative government of Canada. Now, if you don't need another sign to tell you that the world is fucked, that's one. When the Bloc Québécois sides with the Conservatives, you take notice. Now they're doing it for political reasons, but that's besides the point. You know that whatever the leader is doing is completely fucked when the Bloc Québécois sides with the Conservatives. Oh, don't get me wrong, JPs. I don't blame them either. Not in the slightest. I just think that it is a true sign that the world's gone to hell. Because to me, that would be as silly as Trump and Hillary agreeing on something. Okay? Oil and water. Conservatives in the bloc are oil and water, and they have joined forces now. When I heard that, I went, what the fuck? It's crazy. Absolute crazy to me. I never thought I'd see the day that the bloc and the Conservatives would side. The last time that happened was when the Conservative, Stephen Harper, was barely voted into office and the NDP wouldn't support him. So the bloc, seizing the power, jumped on board and propped up the Harper government. It's the last time that happened. And what did the Liberals do? Well, the Liberals attacked the Conservatives for how dare you side with the Bloc? Because the Bloc Québécois, for those who don't know, are the party that insists Quebec should separate from Canada. They're also the only federal party that can only be voted for in one province. Waste of space. But at any rate, I'm not going to get into that. What scares me about this is what next? What next? There are so many groups right now that are against the government. Doesn't matter if it's conservatives, liberals, NDP, doesn't matter who's in charge. They're not happy. There is a major non-happy movement right now. And it's on different fronts. So what's next that gets targeted? Would it be Trudeau's reaction to the Aboriginal peoples of this nation? What's next? They're terrorists too? Where does the line get drawn? Where does the line get drawn? Because blocking off roadways isn't new. This isn't new. Happens all the time. I mean, if you need to see what I'm talking about, go look up the protests for the pipelines. Go look those up. There were borders blocked. There were roadways blocked. There were rail systems blocked for that one. They didn't need the Emergencies Act then. They just did what they did in Ottawa. They sent in the RCMP in full riot gear and removed them. Right or wrong, that's what they did. So next time they need to move people along, or they need to move a project along, who's the next one to get that moniker? The next religious outbreak? Maybe they'll be the next ones targeted. Who's next? Who's next? Because that's what this sets. It sets the precedent for this to be used in this manner. So who's next, Mr. Trudeau? And you're absolutely right, JPs. The truckers could have wreaked absolute havoc in Ottawa. A lot worse than what it was. You'd be surprised how much a truck can pull. There could have been rioting. There wasn't. In any of the protests across Canada, was there a single riot? No. The best they've got is they had bouncy houses. That's the best they've got. How dare they put bouncy houses in the middle of downtown? Oh, you mean like you do every year on Canada Day? Oops. How dare they dance in the street? That is just absolutely disgusting. How dare they? How dare they use the Canadian flag? Ugh. How dare they want something that we don't? How dare they speak out against the government? I got news for you. This isn't the only thing that's being spoke out against the government. So what's next, Mr. Trudeau? What group do you target next? The Aboriginals, maybe? Those are one of your favorite whipping boys. Oh, yeah, we're not supposed to talk about that. The other thing that really pisses me off is how blind people are. A while back, they started this wonderful little thing. See, I can't speak to anything that happens in the States because I follow, but I'm not there. I don't have a dog in the fight. Yeah. But up here, especially in Manitoba, they really started pushing the fact that, well, our medical system is taking a hit and our ERs are full and all this stuff, and we don't have enough nurses and enough doctors, all because of unvaccinated people. That's the problem. These buggers that are unvaccinated are filling up our hospitals and overstressing our system. No, you dumb sons of bitches. It has nothing to do with the unvaxxed. What it has to do with is the very fact that for the last 10 years, minimum, every government, doesn't matter whether it's been conservative, NDP, or liberal, doesn't matter, don't care, all three are guilty. They have cut, slashed, and killed the budgets of every fucking hospital from fucking St. John's to Victoria. So don't give me this bullshit. It's the unvaccinated. It's the dumb sons of bitches who have been cutting funding for ERs, funding for the ORs, funding for the hospital beds, funding for the nurses, funding for the doctors, funding for every health measure across the board. Don't give me this garbage that it's because of a bunch of unvaccinated people who had fuck all to do with it. It's the fact that you made your bed and now you're fucking laying in it and you don't like the bed. So kiss my ass. Sorry, I got a little preachy there. It's a joke. Don't give me this garbage that our health system was pushed to the brink because of a couple of unvaccinated people. Because it's bullshit. Our healthcare system was pushed to the brink because you bastards cut it down to a shoestring and then expected the shoestring to be able to handle things. And yes, Mark, I completely agree with you. I'm just using the terminology that was used. How many ERs? Just in Winnipeg alone, JP? Zax? How many ERs 4 years ago got shut down here in Winnipeg? How many beds were closed in the Grace, St. Boniface, HSC, Victoria? How many? Hundreds. Cost-saving measures. So don't give me this garbage. And you're absolutely right, GP. There's only 3. The rest of them are emergency treatment centers. Triage. Basically, a doctor's office. They're not ERs. Yeah. Exactly. So don't give me this garbage that it's because of unvaccinated people that our healthcare system is struggling. It's because you idiots keep cutting it every fucking chance you get. You can't get blood from a stone. It's a lesson these idiots need to learn. Well, not only that, JPs, okay? You're absolutely right. But here's the thing. Winnipeg is not only, our hospitals don't just deal with Winnipeggers. If you get injured up north, you're flown to HSC. If you get injured in Morris, Manitoba, which is in the south end of the province, you're flown to HSC. You're flown to Winnipeg. Because their hospitals don't have the equipment, so they're flown to Winnipeg. And why do their hospitals suffer? Because they've been slashed and cut down to basic doctor's offices instead of being the hospitals they should have been. But it's the unvaccinated's problem. They're the ones fucking up the system. Has nothing to do with the fact we've cut the funding for hospitals for fucking years. Has fuck all to do with that. Welcome to the fall guy. It's a joke. It's smoke and it's mirrors. And Mr. Trudeau has now set a precedent that our children will have to deal with. It'll become the norm. We don't learn. We don't learn that when a government has too much power, the people suffer. We don't learn. We're too busy being scared. We're too busy allowing fear of the unknown. We're too busy pointing the finger. We're too busy arguing amongst each other to stop and look around what's actually happening. We're too busy arguing. We're too busy stuck in our own little pockets of the world to sit there and really see what's going on. And that's the way they want it. Benefits them greatly. Because the more we're arguing amongst each other, the less energy we have to argue against them. The more divided we are, the easier we are to stomp out. And until we learn, we're doomed to fail. Every time. So if I leave you with anything, I'm going to leave you with the same comment I left you with the last time. Well, we're busy arguing. They're busy doing. It's time we stop arguing. Because we're letting them away with murder. Literally and figuratively. And for those of you who sit there and go, well, they deserved it. The truckers deserved it. Those protesters were angry, violent bastards who deserved to leave. Or you take the premise, I got tired of them honking. Jesus. It was 2 o'clock in the fucking morning. I couldn't sleep. Get them the fuck off the street. Okay. Just remember that. So that when it's your group, when it's your cause that are out on that street, and when the troops come in and they are treated the same way and branded as terrorists, remember your stance today. Just remember your stance today. Because if you call for those men and women to be arrested and treated like terrorists, then you better be doing the same when it's your group. You better be doing the same. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. Plain and simple. Be careful what you wish for today because it may become yours tomorrow. Be careful what you allow your brother to endure because one day you may have to endure it. And when that day comes, you'll be calling for why? Where is the support? Where is the people backing us? Where were you when they needed you? Condemning them. And therefore, they will condemn you. So remember, folks, while we're busy arguing, they're busy doing. And it's what they're doing we should be afraid of.